Have you ever seen a protagonist as unlucky as Nagasumi Michishio? His summer vacation at his grandmother's beach house turned into an unexpected adventure. While swimming, he suffered a severe cramp, and with no one around to help, he was on the verge of drowning. Just in time, he was rescued by a dark-skinned mermaid named Sanseto. However, his luck took a darker turn when he learned that San was the daughter of an underworld boss from the sea. Mermaids, according to their laws, must not reveal themselves to humans, as they would turn into sea foam and perish. Therefore, Nagasumi found himself inadvertently responsible for her fate. That evening, Nagasumi told his parents and grandmother about being saved by a mermaid, but only his grandmother held a slight belief due to old local legends. Suddenly, a lovely girl resembling his mermaid savior appeared. She introduced herself as San and declared she wanted to be Nagasumi's wife, shocking the whole family. Nagasumi's father, thinking Nagasumi had impregnated the young girl, punched him, and his mother joined in, furious that her high school son had supposedly dishonored a girl. The situation escalated when sea gangsters arrived, taking them to meet San's family. Upon learning that San was the daughter of the sea underworld boss, the family fainted. The three were then pushed into the sea to reach the world beneath, where San's family awaited. Nagasumi regained consciousness but fainted again when called son-in-law. The sea underworld boss, Gozaburo Seto, introduced himself and his wife, Ren, San's mother. Normally, humans would not be invited, but the situation was critical. According to mermaid law, it's forbidden for humans to see and remember mermaids' faces. Otherwise, the mermaids would die. Thus, Nagasumi had to marry San to become part of the family and resolve the issue. However, Gozaburo was furious about marrying off his daughter and wanted to avoid it altogether. He planned to eliminate Nagasumi, but was stopped by his subordinates and family. San declared she would rather die than not marry Nagasumi. Ren, the calm mother, proposed a solution that would work for both families. Nagasumi's parents, terrified, shifted the responsibility onto him. Overwhelmed, Nagasumi tried to escape but couldn't run from the dark underworld sea family. Fortunately, San intervened and brought him back to shore. Rescued twice in one day, he couldn't bear to leave her behind. San, incredibly strong and resilient, found it disgraceful not to help him despite the consequences. Back on land, Gozaburo approached with a knife, and Nagasumi had to face a potential death but pleaded with his father-in-law to trust him with his daughter. Gozaburo, still not ready to accept this, considered throwing his son-in-law into the sea again. Both families descended to an underwater palace to discuss further. Ren gently hoped the in-laws would take good care of her daughter. The next day, Nagasumi's grandmother informed them of a festival, suggesting he take his wife out. Nagasumi's parents were still haunted by the previous day's encounter. That night, he was delighted to take San out, though their conversation was awkward. At the festival, Nagasumi soon realized all the vendors were San's family underlings. She reassured him that her family managed the area. Yet, worry persisted, fearing a fiery end from his father-in-law. Sure enough, Gozaburo was there, scaring Nagasumi. A phone call from him, saying, "Your life is in my hands," left Nagasumi trembling. While scooping goldfish, he was sabotaged by the subordinates at the behest of their boss, who brought a talking shark for Nagasumi to scoop. He narrowly escaped, but the splash turned San back into a mermaid. With no other choice, he removed his shirt to cover her tail and carried her away. Just then, his in-laws walked by, seeing Nagasumi doing something with their daughter's lower half, causing a misunderstanding. The father-in-law was furious, but Nagasumi was only trying to dry her legs. This addition brought his parents into the scene, dampening the mood further. San, knowing what her father had done, asked him to apologize, infuriating the mob boss who stormed off. San still wanted to continue their date, pulling Nagasumi away to enjoy the festival. Later, Nagasumi bought San a ring, unaware of its significance, which she interpreted as an engagement ring. Meanwhile, Masa from the gang saw Nagasumi couldn't dance, so he taught him a few moves. Misunderstanding this, San thought they liked each other and sadly walked away, accidentally dropping the ring. Nagasumi, originally thinking marriage was temporary, realized she was serious about being a devoted wife and set out to retrieve the ring for her. Seeing this, Gozaburo was pleased, and Ren brought the ring to the couple. showing Gozaburo no longer wanted Nagasumi's life. Unfortunately, the ring ended up on Masa's finger. In a fit of jealousy, San unleashed an ultrasonic wave that sent Nagasumi's soul to heaven to meet his grandfather. Fortunately, the grandfather sent him back, and Nagasumi's soul returned to his body. After the date, Nagasumi ended up in a full body cast but earned the affection and approval of his wife and in-laws. A few days later, Nagasumi's father was called back to work, and the family had to return, even though it was still summer vacation. They urged Nagasumi to explain things to his wife. The couple met on a boat heading to a romantic island to say their farewells. Nagasumi hesitated, seeing San happy that her father had agreed for them to be together. On the island, Nagasumi also met San's friend Maki, a spirit living in a shell. Later, Masa warned him to be cautious, making Nagasumi pale, realizing Maki was an assassin sent by Gozaburo. At the most critical moment, San called them to play, temporarily saving him. Gozaburo had chosen the remote island with no escape for their leisure. Seeing San in her swimsuit, Nagasumi regained his spirit, ready to battle the assassin. However, Maki proved too strong. Seeing the snake harassing his lady, he drew a gun but ended up hugging San, infuriating Maki further. The innocent San thought they were just playing, reminding Maki not to overdo it. Nagasumi tricked Maki and threw her away, but she immediately flew back and knocked him on the head. Their silent battle continued until it concluded. Nagasumi, feeling inappropriate, let Maki take over applying sunscreen. Nevertheless, Maki did not forget her mission to eliminate Nagasumi and kept launching attacks. San, not thinking much of it, pulled her husband underwater, causing him to log out briefly. When they surfaced, Maki wanted to strike but saw Nagasumi's determination. In the end, San intercepted the bullet, pleading with Maki not to harm Nagasumi, moving everyone. Nagasumi was safe and no longer pursued by Maki. Masa was surprised to see the spirit in a shell defeated. Nagasumi then revealed he was returning to the city for school. Surprisingly, San declared she would always be by his side. Maki reported this sad news to Gozaburo, who nearly cried blood, fearing losing both if they returned to study. The next day, Ren and San's grandmother came to say goodbye. Nagasumi was grateful San had to leave her family and friends. However, Gozaburo clung to the outside of the high-speed train, leaving Nagasumi helpless. Opening his bag, he was shocked to find Maki inside, announcing she was there to take care of San. Upon arriving home, Nagasumi's parents reassured them it was cozy despite its small size. Nagasumi enjoyed living close to his wife but now had to take care of Maki. His parents were deceived by her cute appearance, not knowing the devil behind the disguise. San was given Nagasumi's room while he slept in the attic. San wanted to switch places, not wanting her husband in the attic, making Nagasumi love her even more. They agreed to stay in the attic until they were of age to marry. Now the real story began as the couple headed to the bath together. Maki, furious, shot a hole in the house, startling Nagasumi's parents. Fortunately, San, from a wealthy family, gave her in-laws gold from a sunken ship, cheering them up. Maki blamed Nagasumi for peeping, resulting in his father knocking him out. The next day, things started to settle, so Nagasumi invited his wife shopping while Maki slept. San was excited about the new things. They saw two girls being harassed by thugs. San wanted to intervene, but Nagasumi stopped her. Suddenly, a girl skilled in martial arts arrived, rescuing the girls. This was Akeno Shiranui, a friend of Nagasumi. When the thugs realized their plans were thwarted, they confronted Nagasumi, but he pulled them into the river. Akeno, not knowing how to swim, jumped in, exhausting Nagasumi. San used her sonic abilities to knock them out, and they safely returned to shore. Nagasumi criticized his friend's tomboyish nature, suggesting she should act more feminine now that she's grown up. However, looking back, he felt embarrassed about his comment, which made her swim away. Realizing his mistake, Nagasumi followed her and dried her tail, thinking she would be upset. Instead, she showed fascination with a fiery girl. Later, Maki also arrived, knowing she had taken San to a secluded place. She attacked Nagasumi, who managed to dodge her moves, now used to them. Unexpectedly, Moi hadn't gone home but was looking for them. To keep Maki from being discovered, Nagasumi pretended she was a doll. As San greeted her friend, she learned that Moi aspired to become the police chief like her father. With the police being the enemy of the underworld gangs, it seemed unlikely they could remain friends. The scene shifts to a bar where Masa is drinking, after being pushed from the high-speed train by his son-in-law. The gang leader had lost an arm and was boiling with rage towards Nagasumi, signaling potential deadly consequences. Summer vacation ended, and Nagasumi had to return to school, but this time his wife accompanied him. Maki continued to wake him up with guns and knives, significantly sharpening his danger detection skills. His beloved wife had changed clothes, leaving him enchanted by her beauty. Her father also sent a postcard informing them that all enrollment paperwork was ready. He mentioned that the family would protect them at all times, making Nagasumi quite nervous. He decided to keep their marriage a secret at school to avoid complications. Suddenly, Sun Wukong, a friend of Nagasumi, greeted him, impressed by the beautiful girl accompanying him. This was Sarutobi, a close friend who enjoyed brawling. It turned out that San would also be in their class. Wa later asked about their relationship, deeply interested in her close friend. Nagasumi fabricated a reason, learning they would have a new homeroom teacher this year. Sarutobi, while talking about San, was violently thrown against a wall by this new aggressive teacher. Everyone was shocked, but Nagasumi was terrified because the teacher was none other than his beloved father-in-law, who had secured a teaching position through his connections. With the demeanor of a leader, he intended to run the class gangster style. When introducing the new student San, everyone was surprised to see they shared the same last name. The boss planned to seat his daughter next to him, but she refused and moved to sit next to her husband, infuriating her father. It seemed their student life had come to an end. But wait, Sarutobi was still struggling in the background. Nagasumi took his friend to the infirmary, only to find that his mother-in-law also worked there. She embraced her son-in-law, suggesting if San wasn't satisfied, he could consider taking her too, shocking him. It turned out this environment was completely controlled by the mermaid gang. This year's math teacher was Masa, who was at least decent compared to the rest. At this point, the shark, or should I say Mr. Shark Fujishiro, also arrived asking for some meat, startling Nagasumi. Not to mention the giant octopus above, this guy was one of the biggest threats at the school. San had begun to assert herself now that she was surrounded by family. Nagasumi thought his wife would be upset and teach them a lesson. To his surprise, she was actually happy to be cared for by everyone in the family. It seemed like a total loss now, as he had to face his father-in-law and his minions every day. Later, Masa came over to confide and ask Nagasumi if it was really okay to just give in to the boss, as it would mean easily giving up on his lady's affection. Realizing the issue, he rekindled his spirit, wanting to become a man his wife could rely on. Despite saying that, the second day of school was even more disastrous than the first. The homeroom teacher hardly taught anything useful, so nothing much was learned. Masa was always the best when he made math so understandable. During gym class, the monkey Sarutobi tried to initiate Nagasumi into manhood by peeping at girls changing, but they got caught. Mr. Shark Fujishiro, also aptly nicknamed the Dead Shark, knowing this guy was watching the girls change, attacked. Cornered, Nagasumi faced two choices: die in the jaws of a shark or die at the hands of the girls. Ultimately, he chose to die in the arms of the women and dashed into the girls' changing room, causing a total panic. At the end of the day, he contemplated jumping off a bridge to end it all when his wife called him. Before that, she and her friend Moi had already cleared up the misunderstanding with the girls, so there was no longer anything to worry about. San wasn't angry because she trusted her husband, believing there must have been a good reason for his actions. This only made Nagasumi revere her more. Truly, she was the angel of his life. The next day, Nagasumi's father woke up and saw his daughter-in-law, remarking how much she resembled his wife when she was younger. Back then, Nagasumi's father was quite the fighter, sporting long hair and drowning in debt. It turned out it would take another 5 years to pay off their debts, but the couple continued to age happily, their hair graying and teeth loosening, truly blissful. Now, things were different. After having a foolish child, the mother had aged significantly and looked perpetually tired. When asked why he was staring at his daughter-in-law, it turned out he was reminiscing about his youth. Rumors of an unsavory nature led to his sister-in-law berating him, thinking he had a crush on his daughter-in-law. Nagasumi was head over heels in love with his beautiful wife, truly a case of like father, like son. His mother also showed concern, asking if he was being bothered, but it turned out that the ambiguous relationship was still a secret to everyone. However, San's sons were annoyed by Nagasumi's constant smiling. During a lively session of kissing and hugging, San's father, who was also the police chief, intervened. Their house was filled with figure-8 handcuffs, which San used to restrain anyone who misbehaved. Seeing her husband so close to his friend, San asked Saratoy about it. He explained that they had been close since childhood, like wind and clouds. The four of them played cards together, feeling a shift in their relationships. Nagasumi now had another girl to care about, which made Wa think. That afternoon, she pondered their closeness and decided to investigate what was being hidden. Feeling neglected, she was uncomfortable and kept a close watch, reminding other students to adhere to the rules. Inevitably, she discovered them coming out of a building together. At school, Nagasumi was interrogated about it in front of the class, and San could only cry, fearing her husband was about to be imprisoned. To make him confess, Mora used her secret weapon, bringing delicious food to tempt him. Nagasumi confessed to living with San, shocking Mori. Although they claimed to be relatives, Mori questioned why they would live together. When asked about her father, San saw him torturing his son-in-law with ancient methods. When asked about her mother, San's mother appeared, having just struck her father. The entire class was shocked to learn that San's whole family were teachers at the school. San explained that due to internal family disputes, she temporarily had to live with Nagasumi. Suddenly, a classmate accidentally spilled water on San, causing everyone to worry. Quickly, Nagasumi rushed to cover her and dry her off before anyone could notice. Fortunately, when Moira checked, it had already turned back into a leg, but it seemed that a girl had seen something for a split second. Back home, she started digging into San's family background, always on alert around Nagasumi, making him anxious. As predicted, the girl tried to spill water on San again, but Nagasumi shielded her with his body. Mori later brought up the mermaid tail incident, but Nagasumi skillfully diverted the topic. Born into a family of police with a long tradition, Mori's investigative instinct was strong. She kept splashing water on San, but each time Nagasumi took the brunt of it, preventing things from escalating. That afternoon, sensing someone was following her, Maki planned to attack the stalker, but San stopped her, wanting to keep her secret safe. One day, while sitting in an empty lot where a futuristic robotic cat usually played, a real cat appeared with a miraculous bag. Mori concluded that since San was a fish and fish feared cats, she brought the cat to sleep over. Her reasoning, as a future police chief, was brilliant yet worked. When the cat clung to her, San decided to endure everything for a peaceful life with her husband. Seeing his wife suffer, Nagasumi scolded Mori for prying into San's private life. Mori was saddened and ran home. She was in danger when a car rushed towards her, but Nagasumi risked himself, prompting San to use her shockwave to knock down the car, ensuring their safety. Nagasumi felt proud of her for acting that way. Later, they went to the hospital to find out that the driver was all right. More importantly, Saratoy had heard the sound and talked about it with Moi, who found it amusing that San's sound could save her. Finally, when someone spilled water on San's leg, Mora herself covered it without caring what was underneath. She then apologized for prying into her friend's private life and dragged the mischievous cat away. The scene shifted to a concert by a famous idol named Lunar. Her fantastic voice attracted many fans, but they didn't know she was also a mermaid and the daughter of another gang leader. Her manager informed her that her close friend San had arrived. Hearing this, Lunar canceled her performance the next day to greet San properly. In the past, when the two gangs interacted, Lunar was always the center of attention with her mesmerizing voice. Yet, there was someone even more dreadful with a squeaky voice that made all the underlings cry. San. To Lunar, it felt like an insult. Thus, Lunar considered San her rival ever since. One rainy afternoon, Nagasumi rushed home only to find a mermaid lying there, and it was none other than Lunar, the idol he greatly admired. She used her sonic wave to knock him out, but he was used to it by now. Lunar's subordinates came to eliminate Nagasumi as a witness but were stopped by San in time. The rivals recognized each other, but San cherished Lunar and immediately ran over to hug her. Lunar behaved like a child, speaking in a very gentle and adorable manner. Inside, Nagasumi had to dry the idol off and was questioned about their relationship. San declared Nagasumi her husband, which Lunar found unbelievable. Questioning how noble mermaids could love humans, she suggested it would be quicker to just reincarnate him. San didn't want it to be this way, and Nagasumi made it clear he wasn't afraid of being killed by Lunar because his life belonged only to San. This statement infuriated Lunar even more, feeling like she had lost to San again. Since childhood, she had poured her heart into singing but could never surpass San. Now, Lunar wanted to take everything from her friend by taking Nagasumi for herself. She justified it by claiming that since Nagasumi had seen her true form, she had a right to him. Unlike San, she wanted to make Nagasumi her slave for life. Caught between the two women fighting over him, Nagasumi didn't know what to do. The next morning, Nagasumi woke up to find Lunar lying next to him. He couldn't believe his idol was sleeping next to him. San discovered them and was shocked because Lunar had declared she would do that with her friend's husband. San was heartbroken and asked her husband what they should do, but he had no answer. Downstairs, his parents faced a similar situation with two big guys standing next to them. Even breakfast felt overwhelmingly pressured. When it was time to go to school, to Nagasumi's surprise, Lunar had transferred there to seize him at all costs. Taking away her own happiness seemed to please her. The gang leader was annoyed but familiar with the situation, so he let it pass. Lunar also introduced herself as San's former neighbor, which greatly impressed their classmates. Naturally, everyone wanted to study with a famous idol, so they cheered, startling the gang leader. Saratoi felt betrayed by his close friend once more. Nagasumi explained that it wasn't as Sarat thought. Lunar was vicious, forcing him to live as a slave under the same roof. In class, the two girls constantly competed in every aspect. Lunar, being famous, could cough and classmates would bring her school supplies. San, though not as famous, was still dearly loved and managed to capture the spotlight. From then on, the class was divided into two factions, one that adored Lunar and the other that loved San's charming demeanor. Nagasumi stayed neutral but ended up getting beaten up like a dog. The whole school seemed to have turned into a battleground for the factions to clash. Nagasumi was targeted by Lunar fans because she paid a lot of attention to him. Fortunately, Moi, leading the other girls from the neighborhood police side, came to his rescue and gave the aggressors a good beating. Nagasumi was taken back to the base where he was reprimanded for being partly responsible for the ongoing conflict between Lunar and San, which had escalated into a full-blown battle. They asked him to choose between the two, but his dismissive response that it had nothing to do with them earned him another beating. It seemed that the old saying, "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned," was proving true. As the girls contemplated executing him to speed things up, Lunar and San, from their higher vantage, wanted to end the battle. Lunar declared that a mountain cannot have two tigers, but San was not interested in competing and was willing to let her friend have her way. This indifferent attitude only fueled Lunar's desire to fight and win Nagasumi for herself. After being cornered by the police, he was then targeted by gangsters. Sitting in a corner, he prayed for the ordeal to end quickly. Even Buddha appeared to him and sarcastically remarked about the situation. Saruto realized that if Nagasumi couldn't get past this, he would never see a future. He decided to run home to negotiate with both sides, but another worrisome event had occurred. Maki had been seriously injured by Lunar's bodyguards, heightening the tension between the two gangs. San's father was also ready to fight them tooth and nail. Masa thought that this situation had evolved beyond just a rivalry between Lunar and San. Although the men's side wouldn't be involved, he reassured everyone to stay calm. San, though reluctant to use violence, took up arms after seeing her friend injured. Being her husband, Nagasumi also wanted to get involved in resolving the matter. He first approached Lunar with a proposal to settle their dispute through a singing contest. She agreed, stating that if she won, Nagasumi would become her slave. Quickly, a stage was set for their showdown. With her nationwide popularity, Lunar proved her singing prowess. San, though overshadowed, remained confident and began to sing. The audience gradually recognized her brilliance. However, their songs had a brainwashing effect on the listeners. Nagasumi was used to it, so he was unaffected, but if this continued, everyone else might go mad. Nagasumi asked his wife if she had any other songs, as singing Lunar's song only seemed to make matters worse. She wasn't a singer and didn't have her own songs, but she came up with an idea. By drawing on the power of their love, Nagasumi successfully transformed into a dragon and stopped the conflict. After the violence ended, joy also subsided. Lunar was saddened by her loss, but San wanted her friend to apologize to Maki. Lunar's attitude was dismissive, claiming she hadn't done anything to warrant an apology, which stunned everyone. Maki later came forward and revealed that she had attacked first and accidentally ran into an electric pole, not actually harmed by them. Embarrassed by her mistake, she had lied about the incident, which then came to a close. A few days later, they returned to school as usual, yet trouble still followed them. Another bizarre incident occurred when a submarine somehow broke through the floor to surface. The man who emerged introduced himself as Kai, San's lover, leaving everyone shocked. Nagasumi was furious now that a wealthy rival had appeared. Knowing that Nagasumi had whisked away the innocent girl, Kai planned to chop him into 3 pieces. However, before it could happen, San intervened by slamming a ball into his face. Mai also demanded an explanation from Kai. Kai seemed unconcerned by the damage caused by his submarine because his family was so wealthy. He agreed to compensate the school for any damages, making everyone unexpectedly happy. It turned out that the saying, "money can't buy happiness," was wrong. Not only can money buy happiness, but it also allows you to bother others at will. Kai had a tunnel dug from the sea to the school before driving his submarine in. One should never underestimate how the wealthy spend their money. Kai called San his bride and came to challenge Nagasumi, believing he had forced San to come to the school after discovering she was a mermaid. As a member of the killer whale clan, Kai couldn't allow his childhood friend to be taken away by another. He reminisced about a time when he was a lonely child without friends until he met San. Her father had come to discuss business with his family, and from then on, they became close friends. San always knew how to cheer Kai up, and their playtime together helped him understand many things. Lunar also tried to get acquainted with this wealthy young master, but Kai disdainfully dismissed her. Although beautiful and talented, to him, she was just trivial compared to San. His harsh words broke her heart. Nagasumi faced a formidable opponent in Kai, who had everything, money, looks, you name it, while all Nagasumi had was his pride. Yet, the determined young man couldn't let his wife be stolen like that and decided to engage in a fierce duel. They tumbled out into the vast expanse. Normally, people fear confined spaces, but Kai, being a fish, was the opposite. When he was 6, he had followed his grandfather on a business trip and ended up lost in the Sahara Desert, nearly turning into a dried fish, a fear he still harbored to this day. San also spoke up, unable to believe that her friend had changed so drastically, using money and power to oppress others. Kai understood and apologized, promising not to repeat his actions and to fight Nagasumi fairly in the future. The next day, this killer whale of a man enrolled in school, causing Nagasumi to literally cry in despair. With the sports festival approaching, both men were eager to compete. Despite his fear of open spaces, Kai was determined to win San back at all costs. The next day, he even went to NASA to purchase an astronaut suit. With this suit, his fear of open spaces was mitigated, allowing him to compete. As everyone knows, while the suit works well in space, it's ridiculed on Earth. Since the competition was a team event, their rivalry would continue. Unfortunately, Kai hit his head and broke the visor of his helmet. Luckily, Saratoi seized the moment and prepared a spare helmet for him, which got him recruited as a subordinate. In the final competition, Kai wanted to settle the score once and for all. The loser would have to leave San's life forever. Nagasumi, believing he would lose, boldly accepted since his wife was at stake. San pondered deeply but trusted her husband not to let her fall into another's hands. They competed, unaware that it had begun to rain. Kai, after removing some obstacles, ran much faster. Ironically, when he got wet, he transformed into a killer whale, which was truly comical. 2 other mermaid girls transformed as well, so Nagasumi rushed to cover them up. The event ended there temporarily with no clear winner. A few days later, Nagasumi woke up to a 2-meter-tall man confronting him, threatening destruction if he mistreated Lunar. Overwhelmed with fear, Nagasumi couldn't explain to his beloved wife what had happened. When he arrived at school, his classmates crowded around him, curious about his unusual demeanor. Knowing they might not believe him, he still recounted how a man dressed in a tight black suit like a superhero had come to intimidate him. After hearing Nagasumi's story, no one believed him because it sounded so implausible. When he looked behind him, he saw the ominous figure standing at the door with the word, "Death," lurking, causing Nagasumi to panic. Below, the shark Fujishiro had spotted an uninvited guest holding a toy in his hand. The intruder seemed ready to resolve the situation through violence, and that's how things escalated. Nagasumi tried to tell his mother-in-law about it, but she didn't believe him and suggested he instead. After a while, Nagasumi noticed an unusual silence around him. As he was about to go to school, he saw the large man waiting for him downstairs, which scared him even more. He ran to seek Kai's help, but still couldn't believe what was happening. Only upon returning did he realize the 2-meter-tall assassin was real. They both ran outside like dogs looking for a hiding spot but couldn't escape. Cornered, Saratoi dropped a rope to pull his boss up, and Nagasumi tried to hang on too. As a result, all three of them fell down together. The two quickly ducked into a restroom to hide but were soon discovered. In frustration, Kai pulled out his toy and fired it, causing a loud explosion. Yet, the tall man remained unscathed. Kai even called NASA scientists to use a destruction ray. But the man was too bizarre, unaffected by anything. Eventually, the entire school was evacuated while Kai decided to face him head-on. Unexpectedly, he was punched so hard he thought he was going to meet his ancestors. In a critical moment, San intervened to protect her husband. As she was about to use her sonic wave attack, the wrestler lunged to cover her mouth, knowing her tactics. Seeing his wife like this, Nagasumi rushed to help but was also taken down. The gang boss then attacked the man for daring to touch San. Despite billions of punches thrown, the large man remained unharmed. A single strike pinned the boss's head into the toilet. He asked Nagasumi what his intentions were with Lunar, even as his own head bled. Before Nagasumi could respond, his father-in-law attacked again. The two powerful figures clashed like superheroes, each delivering final blows with maximum strength, worrying San. Ultimately, neither fell, and the situation began to resolve. It turned out the formidable grandfather was Lunar's father. Upon realizing his daughter was staying overnight at a strange boy's house, her father went berserk, as he was just as overprotective of her as Nagasumi's family was. At that moment, San remembered they had met before, and, of course, both patriarchs recognized each other. But being akin to two tigers, they had to fight it out before they could actually talk. This father and son were more aloof, hardly speaking to each other, and left promising to meet Nagasumi again later. A few days later, during a health check at school, Luna realized she had gained weight. Unwilling to accept this, she persuaded San to join her in a weight loss regime. Back home, they went online to find weight loss methods and discovered that Grandfather Mosul was live streaming a sales event. Upon learning his daughter wanted to lose weight, he ordered some products for her. The package contained many unusual items for mermaids, which delighted Lunar, and she dragged her friend to start exercising immediately. Not only that, but the gang boss also installed a super advanced weight loss machine called the Carp leaping over the Dragon Gate. The two girls tried it and indeed found it effective, as it facilitated high-intensity workouts similar to the mythical carp transforming into a dragon. Later, it was the gang boss's turn, sparking Nagasumi's curiosity. He wanted to see the real form of his father-in-law but wasn't allowed and ended up getting a beating from the two old men instead. Fortunately, outside, Nagasumi found an energy drink designed for mermaids and guzzled it down. San tried to stop him, but it was too late. She knew that if a human consumed it, the consequences would be dire. No sooner had she finished speaking than Nagasumi's body began to transform, turning him into a giant who destroyed their beloved home, shocking his father, who had spent 30 years building it. San then used her singing to lull the entire neighborhood to sleep. Despite her efforts, she couldn't wake her beloved husband. If things continued this way, the entire neighborhood would be ruined, causing widespread concern. Kai also tried to intervene, but to little effect. The wealthy one even called NASA to get Nagasumi off the Earth. San, furious at the potential loss of her husband, was relieved to find him safe on the moon. Meanwhile, Kai and the gang boss saw this as an opportunity to eliminate Nagasumi and launched a missile. However, Nagasumi remained unharmed, being in his most resilient state. Later, San's mother hurriedly returned with a special weapon she had ordered online capable of bringing her son-in-law back from the moon. It was incredibly heavy, and its weight stemmed from the love San held for Nagasumi. Launching it to the moon symbolized that her love for her husband was eternal. Miraculously, San was able to throw it all the way to the moon, waking Nagasumi and allowing him to return to normal and safely come back home. Knowing he was still conscious, his mother-in-law punched him for ruining the home they had built over 30 years. Quickly, a new house sprang up, more comfortable than the previous one, bringing her immense happiness. Having in-laws like these was truly fantastic. Afterwards, the mother and daughter went out shopping, leaving Lunar at home alone with Nagasumi. He advised the idol to learn to speak more charmingly. Lunar, hearing this, mockingly sold goods to him for being so presumptuous. However, she used her charm to lure him to her room, making him think adult activities were afoot. In reality, Lunar, struggling academically, only wanted help with her homework. If her academic performance continued this way, she'd risk expulsion, so she had to try harder. Nagasumi, devotedly assisting her, had Lunar sitting on his lap, which encouraged him to press on more eagerly. When he remembered he was San's husband, Lunar casually laid back down. Since he had long admired her, Nagasumi couldn't help but lean in for a kiss, but Maki caught them. Maki threatened to report their kiss and their homework session to the young mistress, scaring them both. Maki would actually be grateful if the two could be together, as it would mean her young mistress wouldn't have to marry a human. Hearing that she liked Nagasumi, Lunar vehemently denied it. He also declared his love only for San, which slightly upset Lunar. Maki then attempted to use her beauty to see if it would tempt him, but sadly lamented that no one would desire her body like a salted fish. Lunar, feeling downcast, beat her servant, declaring that from now on, he could only love her as his master. She was saddened to see herself falling short in every aspect compared to San. Nagasumi's sincere compliments warmed Lunar's heart, even though she still felt like the second choice after San. Just then, the three fathers entered the room and saw Nagasumi drying Lunar's feet, driving them mad and chasing him around. Fortunately, Lunar intervened, but the situation didn't end there. When San and her mother returned from the market and learned about Nagasumi's supposed affair with Lunar, they were heartbroken. The addition of the two foolish merman fathers only fueled the fire, complicating matters further. They asked Lunar if she loved Nagasumi, and upon her admission, her father gave Nagasumi two choices: death or a life worse than death, essentially forcing him to take responsibility with Lunar. San was deeply saddened upon hearing this, and Nagasumi was immediately taken to Lunar's family to prepare for a wedding. Everyone advised San to forget Nagasumi, deepening her sorrow as she blamed herself for not being able to keep her husband. The next day, when Lunar returned to collect her belongings, she found her rival deeply sad but not blaming herself. Although Lunar really wanted to tell San that Nagasumi truly loved her, she couldn't bring herself to say it as a rival. San had never asked her husband if he loved her. Lunar's family, thrilled about her newfound freedom, and Maki remained silent. Lunar stated that if there were to be an explanation about Nagasumi drying her feet, she should be the one to speak up. However, the idol was afraid that by telling the truth, she would end up being the loser. That evening, San began packing her belongings to leave the family, which saddened Nagasumi's parents. Meanwhile, Nagasumi was being confined. When Lunar returned, she explained why she often clashed with San. She lacked the family support that San had. Her mother left when she was just 5, and her father was always silent, leaving little communication between them. In contrast, San had everything, which is why Lunar desired Nagasumi's love. It was the only way she felt she could win against her friend. Realizing the situation, Nagasumi tentatively agreed, and the wedding was immediately set into motion. The pressure was immense as both parents were brought in, and Nagasumi was seen as toying with San's feelings. Since members from both gangs were present, one even planned a suicide bombing against him but was stopped by Uncle Masa and others. From now on, they no longer needed to pretend to be teachers because their roles were finished with this union. At that moment, Lunar's father offered Nagasumi a drink, but it was refused. Nagasumi explained that the way Lunar loved him wasn't genuine but stemmed from a desire to compete. Love should come from both sides, not as a command. Hearing this, Lunar burst into tears, and her father was about to act on his anger. Nagasumi appreciated the deep bond between the father and daughter. Though unspoken, he could tell the father truly loved his daughter. The situation began to clear up when Lunar admitted that there was nothing between them and that Nagasumi was merely helping her dry her feet. However, her love for him was real. Hearing this, the old man insisted they proceed with the wedding. Just then, San arrived. She had prepared everything to win back the man she loved, even if it meant severing the father-daughter bond with her father. Hearing this, he was so shocked that his soul nearly left his body. This act was to avoid conflict between the two gangs and prevent them from interfering. San alone took on the opposing gang and rushed to reclaim her husband, She also professed her love and asked if Nagasumi would marry her. He joyfully accepted, saying he had regarded her as his wife since last summer, which made her very happy. Seeing their young mistress's determination, her gang readied their weapons for battle. Lunar felt relieved, but a greater issue now was the imminent clash between the two gangs. To end it, the two girls sang with enchanting voices, calming everyone present. Finally, Lunar's father asked if she still wished to go through with the marriage. Although she desired to be loved as she currently was and saw their happiness together, she declined, confident she would eventually win over the affections of her beloved. A few days later, everyone returned to Nagasumi's house to live as before. Today, Maki had an incident with a cat that kept licking her. Seeing her alone, Nagasumi brought the cat to school. Everyone liked the little cat except the merfolk. Seeing this, he even used the cat to scare Kai away. Uncle Masa, who had previously been very afraid of cats, was now less so. He even planned to use the cat to scare his father-in-law, Gozaburo. However, when Gozaburo appeared, initially formidable, he vanished without a trace at the sight of the kitten. Nagasumi took the opportunity to chase after Gozaburo. San explained that her father's fear of cats stemmed from being bitten by one while sleeping as a child, which left him terrified for life. Learning that his son-in-law hadn't yet gotten rid of the cat, Gozaburo ordered Maki to call the bodyguards to eliminate Nagasumi immediately. During gym class, the three bodyguards planned to use a soccer ball to assassinate Nagasumi to avoid raising San's suspicions. However, the three bodyguards were clueless. They didn't even know who Nagasumi was and had to ask him directly. Sensing something was off, the young man pointed at Kai instead. As a result, Kai was beaten up badly. Maki then had to direct them to the correct target. However, Nagasumi had brought a protective spirit animal, and the situation quickly turned in his favor. The cat chased the panicking fish people, causing chaos throughout the school. Kai escalated the situation by calling in the entire fleet, leading to utter chaos. Uncle Masa and Nagasumi's mother had to step in to resolve the unnecessary trouble. At the end of the day, realizing his position was weakening, the boss devised a new plan targeting the cat. One of the bodyguards recklessly attempted to snatch the kitten and throw it into the water, causing Nagasumi great worry. He wanted to dive in to save it, but San stopped him, saying underwater rescues were her expertise. Though hesitant, she plunged in to save the kitten, forcing Maki to follow suit. The two managed to save the kitten but not Gozaburo and the three bodyguards. The gang leader later scolded them for their foolishness. The next day, Lunar was busy with a performance and took a day off school. Kai had a gift for the beautiful girl that made her very happy, a pair of tickets to the hottest movie currently showing. San, who also loved movies, however, turned down Kai's date invitation. Being married, she couldn't go on a date with someone else. Seeing his boss's distress, Toy suggested they double date, which would also give him a chance to get closer to San. He followed suit by inviting Maki, who was also a big fan of the movie. The four of them made plans to double date next Sunday, and the class president overheard. Speaking of this shy girl, she cared a lot for Nagasumi. Knowing they were going on a date together made her heart ache, so she decided to disguise herself and check it out. At this time, although it seemed there were only two pairs, Lunar was free today and also joined in. When pairing up, the couple still stayed together while Toy ended up with the idol, which drove him crazy. Unable to accept this, Lunar sent Nagasumi to buy drinks. Unexpectedly, he bumped into the class president, who was out for a stroll. Since she had let her hair down and was wearing different glasses, Nagasumi didn't recognize her. Having accidentally broken her glasses and without money in his pocket, he invited her to go back to Lunar to ask for some money. Meanwhile, San accidentally fell into the water, so Nagasumi rushed to kick Toy in the mouth to prevent him from seeing her mermaid tail. Lunar also fell, so the two of them decided to swim elsewhere. Nagasumi borrowed Lunar's black card and took his friend to a store to buy new glasses. The class president, without her glasses and seeing him in low resolution, did not realize it was Nagasumi. Since neither recognized each other, they shared a moment of youthful confiding, which made the girl realize she was falling in love with him. Kai, who was paired with Maki, felt awkward. It was the first time they were this close to each other for so long, and they ended up leaning on each other. The class president, having lost her glasses, stumbled into some bushes and had to hold on to Nagasumi's arm as they walked past where the father-in-law was playing ball. They were caught in a seemingly compromising position. The friend explained that there was nothing between them, so the father-in-law let them go. The two continued their quest for glasses, unaware of each other's identity until the very end. The eyewear salespeople, seeing the powerful black card, immediately called a luxury card to take them home like VIPs. In the car, the girl expressed her gratitude to him, but once she put on her glasses and recognized Nagasumi, she quickly left for another place. The class president was sad she hadn't recognized the person she cared about sooner. Besides that, she was also upset that Nagasumi had not recognized her. To avoid embarrassment, the class president pretended not to know him. When he asked her name, before she could answer, San and her family arrived, ending their conversation. The class president simply said goodbye and promised to meet again without revealing her name. At the start of the week, their school welcomed a new student who looked quite formidable. She introduced herself as Akino and was always careful to observe San and her associates closely. Both Lunar and San couldn't figure out what type of person she was, but she seemed to know a lot about them. Akino's presence also troubled Nagasumi as she emitted a very dangerous aura. On the contrary, Saratoi was completely smitten with her because he found her stunning from head to toe. When she inquired about Nagasumi's relationship with the two girls, he said they were relatives. Kai, noticing she carried a sword, wanted to get to know her because he was also fond of that kind of thing. When Akino saw Kai fighting with Nagasumi, she intervened and disqualified Kai, which meant he could no longer appear in the human world. It turned out that she was an inspector and also a merperson like them. San was worried after learning that Akino had come to assess everyone's actions at school, but she couldn't reveal this because doing so would mean her own disqualification. Maki was a clear example of this as she was currently being packed up to be sent back to the sea. The boss was also silent, fearing expulsion to the sea would be too harsh, so it was up to San to save everyone on her own. Any merperson who revealed their identity or acted excessively beyond human capabilities was disqualified. Mr. Moso was seriously evaluated but found to have no issues. San, fearing she might be taken away from her husband, also felt immense pressure. Nagasumi sensed something unusual about Akino and tried to ask her a few questions but gained no new information. Seeing his wife worried, he asked her as well, but the laws were strict and San could not disclose them. Moreover, she had promised Akino, so she pretended everything was fine to keep her husband reassured. Seeing her trustworthy demeanor, Akino commended her, but within seconds, San accidentally spilled water on herself. Quick as a flash, Inspector Akino subdued everyone in the class and told Nagasumi to dry his wife. She would protect their secret herself. Meanwhile, Kai, eager for revenge, used mermaid sword techniques which immediately led to him being disqualified again. Seeing this, the boss said nothing and simply sent the human students away. San transformed back and boasted to her friend, but this only infuriated Akino further. When they clashed, San was fearless, her demeanor completely changing when she wielded a sword. Realizing she had been disqualified, she sadly asked her husband if he would be willing to go back to the sea with her. Confused by the situation but resolved, Akino decided not to disqualify San anymore since she hadn't physically touched her. She considered it as if she hadn't made it official. San had to become stronger to avoid being touched by the inspector, thus remaining safe. That evening, the group of merpeople who had been disqualified earlier also came forward seeking justice. However, Akino was too powerful, easily overcoming their physical forms. Still, their will to stay in the city remained, and the next day, they followed her around like three fools. To humans, it seemed like these three wore masks or something similar. After being treated roughly, the three bodyguards wanted to follow and protect the inspector to redeem themselves. San, passing by and seeing Akino's anger, joined the three brothers, making Akino even more furious. Saratoi, still infatuated with the beautiful newcomer, served her in hopes of gaining her attention. In terms of persistence, this monkey was second to none, no one daring to claim first place. His clinginess left Akino exasperated. Maki, seeing the commotion, came to disperse the crowd and wanted to investigate the new girl further but was denied. Later, Kai reappeared, scolding Saratoi for swearing loyalty to him but now siding with the enemy. Saratoi, fearless, told Kai he was past his prime and struck him, literally cutting him in two. But Saratoi, stubborn as ever, still wanted to serve under Akino, which drove the gang boss mad. Since her arrival, he felt sidelined and had to be cautious. Otherwise, he risked being sent back to the sea, a disastrous prospect. At this point, Mori, representing the discipline committee, condemned Akino for apparently trying to build a power base within the school. Mori herself was highly regarded by many female students, so Akino faced significant pressure from them as well. She explained that she was not a boss or involved in anything shady, but with a crowd already forming behind her, only a fool would believe that. The situation continued to deteriorate, and even the new couple couldn't do anything to stop it. Thus, a new power led by Akino, with voluntary underlings, emerged. Saratoi introduced this beautiful newcomer to the boys at school, drawing many into the game. The girls still following Mori came to quell the chaos like before. They confiscated everything Saratoi was using to promote his agenda, then strategized not to let the school turn into a gang, although it was already one from the start. During the meeting, San opposed the measures proposed by Mori. She felt that everyone was too quick to judge Akino without really understanding her, which could lead to her being ostracized and left without any friends. Mori later realized she was being hasty. She had made a similar mistake with San before, so she couldn't afford to do so again. Meanwhile, 3 men were plotting to get rid of Akino because she was becoming too troublesome. Their wives discovered their plan and promptly reprimanded them to prevent any foolish actions. Mori then approached them, and they dispersed, realizing they had been saved from a bigger conflict. At this point, she wanted to discuss the newcomer and her own role in leading the girls to ostracize her. Seeing this, San's mother consoled her, suggesting that being suspicious isn't always bad. Being cautious could sometimes save you from a clear loss. Just then, the class president arrived to report that Akino was being troubled by some people. A few opportunists, seeing Akino in trouble, decided to turn against her. But Mori stopped the pointless argument. The puppeteers behind the scenes were also discovered, which made the real boss shudder. He may be a boss in name, but to his wife, he was just a nuisance, and he was quickly taken down. Moreover, San's mother stepped forward to conclusively end the matter with convincing words. Mori apologized to her friend for having doubted her and was praised with the hope that she would become a good police officer in the future. The boss later announced to the students about a field trip planned for the next day. It should have been announced a week ago, but he had fallen asleep during the meeting and forgot. Although the notice was sudden, everyone was excited about the trip except for San, who pulled her husband aside to talk privately. It turned out she was worried about the possibility of having to bathe with others during the trip, exposing her mermaid identity. Akino had warned that if San's mermaid form was revealed on this outing, she would have to return to the sea. Maki also wanted to come along to protect her lady but wasn't trusted much by Nagasumi. Moreover, this little one would ruin their privacy. Returning to his seat, Nagasumi looked as gloomy as if he was constipated, prompting Mori to ask what was wrong. He concocted another excuse to brush it off and was advised to cheer up. The 2 guys sitting next to him were in a similar predicament, wishing Lunar was there to lighten the mood as sitting across from Akino was anything but fun. Upon reaching the first location, the atmosphere seemed a bit more cheerful. San's father bought her a sword which she really liked. They even took a family photo, though it turned out looking rather menacing. Saratoi and Kai seemed better, but one person still appeared lonely. Seeing this, Nagasumi approached Akino and struck up a conversation, inviting her to walk with him. She realized his concern and explained that her job was to evaluate others, which prevented her from making friends. Emotions would interfere with her work and compromise her fairness. Sharing this with him, Akino smiled gently, likely her first since arriving at the school. Utilizing his instincts, Nagasumi noticed Maki plotting something and managed to intercept a water bullet she fired at his friend. It was the first of many aimed at turning Akino into a mermaid, but surprisingly she endured it. However, once hit with water, a mermaid must revert to her true form, so she could only hold it off for so long. Maki kept firing, soaking her completely, though she managed to hold back her transformation. San witnessed this and was furious at Maki's actions. After this incident, Akino lost trust in Nagasumi because he was connected to Maki. San apologized to her friend, mentioning that she had locked up the troublesome Maki for now. Temporarily, Akino decided to trust them again, especially after learning that San had meticulously prepared to face the challenge of not bathing this time. Intrigued, Akino wanted to teach San some tricks. Just then, 2 friends arrived, shocked upon hearing some strange sounds and realizing Akino liked women. The 2 then went to bathe, having booked a separate room to avoid being discovered. Mori wanted to prevent the 2 friends from doing something suspicious but was stopped by Nagasumi. Realizing they were bathing and didn't want Mori to see their true forms, he intervened. Overwhelmed by the suggestive sounds coming from the room, Mori couldn't resist checking on them, only to find they weren't transforming into mermaids but were actually practicing. After this, Akino asked Nagasumi if he had given up, asserting that humans truly couldn't live with merpeople. She advised him to break up with San, offering protection from her and her people. However, the young man refused, determined to stay with San despite the hardships they had faced. He also apologized for the morning's incident, but she didn't blame him after learning the truth. That night, she met with her superior to discuss their covert mission to split the couple. It turned out that the murder was just a pretext for Akino to stay and achieve her real goal of severing the ties between humans and merpeople. Despite feeling uncomfortable with this task after getting to know them, she had no authority. Her boss handed her some vials containing a drug that could make San see the evil in humans and abandon Nagasumi. The second day began with the boss and some drugged-up students exploring while the married couple walked through an ancient film set, unexpectedly running into Mori. She was still very interested in Nagasumi, so she appeared embarrassed. Meanwhile, Akino was starting to implement her plan with a few accomplices. 3 bodyguards, along with Kai, who wanted the couple to split, agreed to cooperate. The reward wasn't just that. If successful, their misdeeds would be erased, allowing them to stay. Returning to where San and the others were, they encountered Lunar, who was filming there. She had arranged her schedule to join them for the day. Everyone was a fan of period dramas, so Lunar introduced them around. However, things turned sour as they discovered the film set was being sabotaged. Lunar was particularly unconcerned since her father had invested in the movie. When he learned of the trouble, he arrived to sort things out. His solution? He handed his daughter $1 million and even hired San's group as extras, which they couldn't refuse. Before he disappeared, they had no choice but to participate, which turned out to be quite fun. It seemed the trouble was orchestrated by Akino's group, who also wanted to play their parts. Kai brought a potion that was supposed to reveal the evil nature of humans and had everyone drink it, everyone except Nagasumi, who was wary of mermaid beverages after a previous transformation. According to Akino, the drink would unleash hidden desires, showing San the darker side of Nagasumi. Unsure whether entrusting this task to the clueless group was wise, each had already downed the bottle and then offered it to her. Kai on the side asked Nagasumi if he had drunk it, to which he lied that he had. They then proceeded to film, but something strange happened. Akino, having consumed the drink, suddenly wanted to attack others as it had awakened a violent desire within her. Terrified, Nagasumi ran but was caught by Lunar, who then proceeded to act out her own desires of making him her slave. At this moment, Moi intervened, driven by her aspiration to become a police officer. Sensing something was off with everyone, Nagasumi made a quick escape as it seemed everyone around had turned into foes. Conveniently, Surat Toy, also under the influence, aimed to grab Akino, creating a diversion for his friend. At this point, San appeared, driven by her desire to protect her husband. She used sonic waves to attack those targeting him. Only Akino was unaffected. She drew her sword, ready to fight. Fortunately, this chaotic scene was halted by her superior. At the end of another day, Akino concluded that the potion had been ineffective on San because deep in her heart, Nagasumi held a firm and unshakable place unaffected by external influences. For now, the plan to drive them apart was put on hold to carry out a test. Meanwhile, San took her husband to a quiet spot to watch the full moon. Since the trip, they hadn't had much private time, so he happily held her hand, delighting her. The trip ended with everyone having a collection of beautiful photos to display. Everyone was happy except Nagasumi, who didn't find any of his photos flattering. Another person who wasn't happy was Lunar, who had been too busy filming to play much. She took out her frustration on Nagasumi, causing him to notice something unusual outside. It was Lunar's father, who had come to check on his daughter on his rare day off. Knowing she hadn't enjoyed the previous day with her friends, he felt saddened. As a father, he wished to enable her to have fun like everyone else but was too busy to do anything about it. He also asked Nagasumi how he could make his daughter happy, as he felt he hadn't provided happiness to his wife before she left. Despite his efforts to indulge his daughter, he still felt it wasn't enough. From Nagasumi's perspective, however, Lunar was very happy at home, so he thought what her father was doing was more than sufficient. All that was needed now was to encourage Lunar about the outing. Taking Nagasumi's advice, her father barged into the classroom, startling everyone. His lack of eloquence also enraged Lunar, who threw him out. That evening, unable to grasp his daughter's feelings, the boss went online to understand better. The next day, as Saratoi called his friends to school, they saw Lunar step out, still upset about not having fun like everyone else. Here we see Lunar's father who, after implementing what he read online, ended up looking like this. His attempts to make his daughter happy had the opposite effect. His appearance and address terrified her. It didn't stop there. He also visited the classroom, shocking everyone. The class teacher walked in to find his nemesis had become a bizarre sight, which infuriated him. It was like a clash of titans, but instead of fighting, they discussed their outfits. Lunar's father's imagination was quite vivid, and this rubbed off on San's father. They talked about not understanding their daughter's feelings, which was indeed true. Ever since San married that clever Nagasumi, her father had been unable to grasp her thoughts. As a good friend, Lunar's father gave San's father a video game to serve as a guide to improve the situation. Meanwhile, Fujishiro the shark was annoyed about his boss's situation. Being a gangster was fun until he was suddenly forced to teach, which no one could tolerate. Just then, the boss came in and invited the two close brothers to play the game, adding to their shock. Being gangsters, they had no clue about the game. Having run out of ways to understand their daughters, the next day they started role-playing as characters from the game. Masa became Nagasumi's sister, and Nagasumi himself was disappointed to see his admired brother become more comical than before. Looking out the window, he even saw Lunar's father next door. San realized things were not right and wanted to stay home, but Lunar wouldn't allow it. After being humiliated in front of everyone the day before, Lunar felt it was her best friend's turn to experience it. As expected, upon reaching school, the great father had transformed into this. The image of the father shattered into 1,000 pieces. The two daughters were left in tears, speechless with their fathers. The two younger brothers couldn't take it anymore and wanted to return their gang loyalty to start their lives afresh. San and Lunar scolded their fathers about their foolish behavior affecting others. Even their mother couldn't stand it anymore and came to stop the two men. She lectured them that as fathers, they should behave in certain ways. Their daughters always looked up to them, and now they had completely ruined that image. Realizing their mistake, the two fathers apologized to their daughters for disappointing them. The scene shifts to the home of the class president. At that moment, she was writing a love letter to send to her crush the next day. When Nagasumi arrived at school, he discovered the letter in his locker and panicked, quickly hiding it so his wife wouldn't see it. He found a secluded corner to read it and was thrilled to see a meeting point written, making him happy since it was the first time he had received a love letter from a girl. From that moment on, Nagasumi was elated and determined not to tell anyone or let anyone find out. He had no intention of betraying anyone. He was merely enjoying the feeling of receiving a love letter. However, the pesky Maki found the letter and exposed him. San asked what he was hiding, but he didn't confess. Lunar, also curious, knocked him out with a punch and then opened the letter to read it. Thus, the love letter was discovered by the whole class, leading them to ostracize him. San, knowing she had a rival, was unfazed and handed the letter back to her husband, urging him to meet the writer that afternoon. Lunar invited her friend to hide in the bushes beforehand to see who the rival was. Surprisingly, everyone was interested in this matter, so a group formed. San wanted to leave, fully trusting her man. He had also arrived, so they couldn't leave just yet. The girl who sent the letter hadn't shown up yet, making Nagasumi nervous, and rightly so, as the ones who appeared were Lunar and San's fathers. They revealed that they had sent the letter to test his love for their daughters. Knowing his flirtatious nature, they had planned to have their underlings take action. Fortunately, San intervened. As a great father, he wouldn't allow his daughter to be betrayed by another. The boss also tried to punch him, but the son-in-law dodged them all. Thanks to survival instincts honed from constantly being targeted for assassination, he had learned infinite instincts, so he no longer feared the two old men. They threw millions of punches, but San's mother stopped them because it was all nonsense. Immediately, the two unfortunate fathers were dragged away to let San and her husband resolve the situation. She still trusted him, and the class president witnessed all this, knowing she had made a mistake by doubting her husband's loyalty. She also confided in her mother-in-law. His mother-in-law had concocted a magical potion that made anyone who drank it instantly famous for a day. It sounded like some kind of fantastical gadget from a futuristic robotic cat. As soon as she drank enough, the mother-in-law began to fancy her son-in-law even more. This newfound motherly affection delighted him but also terrified him of being killed, so he slipped away. Back at school, the potion continued to work its wonders, making Nagasumi irresistibly attractive to all the women around him. However, this charm turned into a curse among his male peers. His father-in-law, annoyed by Nagasumi's allure, punched him. Subsequently, every male in the class wanted to chase him down, thinking he was the enemy. Fortunately, the females stood up for him, saving his life. But the situation was unsustainable, so Nagasumi fled home. Even his mother fell under the potion spell, leaving him at his wit's end. He locked himself in the bathroom to avoid any disturbances, only to find Maki already there. Like others, she had fallen madly in love with him. Suddenly, a group of girls arrived to satisfy his needs, but life isn't that simple. As his father-in-law returned home, forced outside, he then encountered his own father, who gave him a beating like a tattered quilt. The next day, Nagasumi, with a foolish look on his face, received another love letter at school. Learning from the previous day, he no longer wanted to meet with anyone. However, this was actually a letter from the class president. She had removed her glasses and let down her hair to look like the image from the day before. Nagasumi and his father-in-law had to watch what would happen next. Just as San arrived, the class president confessed her love, mistaking him for someone else due to her poor eyesight. San, receiving a confession for the first time, rejected her for various objective reasons. Embarrassed by the episode, the class president wished she could just disappear. A few days later, Lunar asked San to act as her boyfriend for a rehearsal for an upcoming movie. This wouldn't be a big deal unless the character of the boyfriend was a gangster. To fit the part, San also disguised himself as such, which made Nagasumi sadder than ever. This role seemed challenging for San. When they arrived at school, Lunar asked the boys if anyone wanted to pretend to be her boyfriend. Except for Kai, everyone was eager to be Lunar's boyfriend. The situation split the class into two factions as before. Fortunately, the issue ceased when San appeared in that role, engaging everyone present. San's father, seeing his charming daughter transformed into a rough character, was heartbroken. For the time being, the matter was paused to avoid negatively impacting San. Additionally, Lunar's character needed to learn ventriloquism, but she couldn't manage it, so she reluctantly asked Maki for help. Initially, Maki refused but agreed after Lunar asked her to help her best friend. The next day, Maki got inside a doll to speak for her, effectively performing the ventriloquism. At school, Lunar demonstrated her skill by pretending to speak through her stomach while whistling. However, the two soon clashed due to a lack of synchronization. Maki couldn't stand Lunar's attitude, and Lunar was upset by the unpleasant truths being spoken. They ended up fighting, luckily unnoticed. San intervened to stop them, but Akino discovered the situation. It was already known that Maki was banned from attending school. Later, Lunar wanted Maki to perform with her, knowing that getting caught live on air would require serious explanations. Despite the tense situation, Akino immediately called someone to pick them up. S suggested canceling the performance, but Lunar laughed and insisted on participating, adamant about not being expelled. By the third period, Lunar wanted to run away but was stopped by Kai due to her contract with Akino. Nagasumi also tried to persuade her, but Lunar's determination was too great. Maki promised to support her to the end and facilitated an escape. Even S lent a hand, fighting Akino. When Maki saw Lunar being attacked, she turned back, pulling Lunar with her. Injured, Lunar could no longer perform. After a sword fight with San, Akino realized a few things and went to find Mr. Masa to inquire. It turned out he had taught San swordsmanship, a technique passed down through Ao's family, which Akino couldn't learn. She asked Masa where he had learned it, but he didn't remember due to memory loss before joining the gang. Akino mentioned that her brother, an examiner, had gone missing around the time he was supposed to be assessing the Saito gang, leading her to suspect that her brother had taught Masa the swordsmanship. S's father overheard and became very worried, but Masa still remembered nothing. Subsequently, the father-in-law kidnapped Nagasumi to separate him from the others. He explained that when Ao's brother came to investigate, he was offered a drink. They talked about S's future, but excessive drinking led to a confrontation, and the father punched the man, burying his head in the ground and causing him to lose his memory. Since then, Akino's brother had been living as Masa, hiding his true identity as an examiner. Upon discovering this, the young man helped his father-in-law keep the secret. Seeing the three attempting to use the sword to trigger memories, Nagasumi intervened and took it away, resulting in a heavy punch from Akino. Nagasumi still tried to distract Masa with other matters. Seeing the worsening situation, the boss threw a few punches to make them forget everything. These punches accidentally helped Masa regain consciousness, so he had to punch more. Akino tried to intervene but was knocked down by San, hitting her head on the ground and losing her memory, reverting to her state 10 years ago. In Masa's chaotic memories, he wanted to return the body to the kindly brother's memories, but the brother refused because Masa now had a new life. They were two but as one, so there was nothing to regret. Akino then fell again and recovered, temporarily returning everything to normal. At the end of the day, the three men discussed how Masa had remembered everything but chose to continue living his current life because he loved his boss and family dearly. The scene shifted to the workplace of the examiners, revealing that the plot to separate San from Nagasumi was orchestrated by a higher-up who had a liking for San. Seeing his subordinates, especially Akino, were ineffective, he decided to take matters into his own hands. Back at the married couple's home, a situation developed. Nagasumi was absorbed in watching movies, oblivious to his wife managing all the household chores alone. Frustrated, San turned off the TV, but Nagasumi turned it back on to continue watching. Seeing Lunar being interviewed on TV, Nagasumi enjoyed it, making San jealous. When she brought up their marriage, Nagasumi insensitively mentioned that their marriage was arranged. San realized they were just a couple in name only, leading to a fight. Their classmates, sensing an opportunity, fantasized about being with their crushes after their potential breakup. Meanwhile, Akino delivered an invitation from higher-ups to San's family. The boss knew that the host, Yoshio, was a womanizer and disliked him. Knowing the invitation couldn't be refused, they had to attend. Naive San agreed to go, worrying her mother about potential trouble. That evening, still angry, San didn't tell her husband about the event. The next morning, Nagasumi found out that the whole gang had gone somewhere for a meeting, making him anxious. Kai, sensing something amiss, questioned Akino, but she remained silent. With information from his family, he knew major gangs were gathering. Hearing that Yoshio was hosting, Lunar stepped in, denouncing him as a debaucher. They were particularly worried that San would be targeted at this party. Akino knew they would attempt to rescue and didn't stop them. Meanwhile, Nagasumi, missing his wife for a day, realized his mistake. San's family arrived at the venue and was received by Yoshio, who only showed interest in San. By the time they realized the problem, everyone had been drugged and knocked out. Nagasumi, deciding to find his wife, was picked up by Lunar and Kai. They were attacked en route because the enemy had more information than them. San's family was also separated and couldn't do anything. Akino returned to her duty of protection, frustrated to see the host's debauchery. Yoshio is the law here, and Akino had no chance against the nobility of his family. After crossing the sea, Kai's group reached their destination and stormed into the castle. However, the multitude of enemies made Nagasumi shudder. Fortunately, there were enough soldiers above to provide some support. Lunar used her singing to manipulate the enemies, helping Nagasumi in his search for his wife. As he barged into the place where the rich playboys gathered, Yoshio recognized him as the one following San. Unwilling to waste words, he sent Akino to deal with him, surprising Nagasumi, who realized the person he considered a friend had long betrayed him. She urged Nagasumi to give up on San and surrender, but he refused. Nagasumi would rather die than forsake his pure and innocent wife. He accused Akino of being too weak to disobey this villain, making her realize the truth. When she thought of rebelling, Yoshio summoned a beast to attack. Luckily, at the critical moment, San's father arrived and saved his son-in-law. Seeing this, Yoshio commanded thousands of his subordinates to toy with them. Maki also arrived in time to shoot them down, commending Nagasumi's bravery for daring to come here. His brothers-in-law also arrived to reassess him. San's mother stayed behind to treat Akino, telling Nagasumi to continue searching for their daughter. The battle intensified when Lunar summoned her father to aid them. With his superhuman strength, he swept away all enemies around. At this moment, Yoshio approached San, but Nagasumi caught up, leading to a battle between the two men. However, Nagasumi was significantly outmatched in strength. The reason San remained unconscious was due to the mermaid scent, which doesn't affect humans much, so Nagasumi could still stand. He threw a powerful punch at Yoshio, but being a merman, it had no effect. Unable to use physical strength, the young man resorted to his words to awaken his wife. Hearing the sound of her ring falling, San suddenly woke up. Knowing her husband had risked everything to come for her, she decided to fight fiercely. Yoshio then pulled out a gun, pointing it at San. Nagasumi stepped in to shield her. Empowered by his wife's strength, he transformed into a dragon, causing everything around to tremble. The immense power of their love incinerated everything. The bullet was repelled back, frightening the villain until he turned pale. It was too late for regrets, and he received a beating from the couple for using his power to harass a decent woman. As a result, Nagasumi transformed him back into his original form, a fat catfish. Following this incident, Akino's superiors decided to report Yoshio's case to higher authorities, as they had tolerated him for far too long. Returning to the couple, seizing the moment with a wedding dress and ring at hand, Nagasumi proposed to San. He realized how deeply he loved her. Hearing these words, she felt immensely happy. Thus ends the tale of the merman and the human. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe.